Welcome everyone to this new episode of Meet Our Ambassador. Today I'm really happy to welcome Chris Green as our new OnCrawl ambassador. He recently joined the team, so welcome Chris. I hope you're doing okay today.
I'm good, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
So just for a quick introduction, you recently joined Footprint Digital, at their new head of marketing innovation. You're a regular speaker at conferences, webinars like Brighton SEO, State of Digital, Optimizes Tascon, and we can also find you blogging on State of Digital as well. Did I miss something?
No,
do you want to add something?
Oh, right. There's a few bits. I've got a couple of webinars coming up. Just generally, I kind of get about. I think Twitter is probably the best place to sort of keep track of that. I've got a habit of not saying no to things, and then just wait and see what happens to it. So actually, yeah, being busy is good though. I'm bored. I'm terrible if I get bored.
Okay. So first question is, can you tell us how and why you started in the SEO industry?
Good question. I can tell you how. I'm not sure I can say why so well. I think it's one of those, I guess like most, I just sort of fell into it really. I started off content writing and I had the opportunity to do sort of a marketing job that had an SEO element. And essentially I managed to convince my boss that I knew what it was purely because I knew slightly more than he did. So I guess you could say I almost blagged my first opportunity, and sort of luckily enough, I enjoyed it and I learned quickly. The first role I had was kind of a combined paid search, ad analytics, general digital marketing. So I got a good sort of flavour across spectrum. Then I was working in-house for a little while as an SEO, and then finally on the agency side, which is when I think I probably learned most things, and became a tech SEO and then content manager, then moving into sort of strategist, head of search position, and now head of marketing innovation really. So I consider myself an SEO at my core, even though I've got quite a broad sort of base in marketing, sort of digitally, which is all stuff that's cool. That's all I enjoy it. It's not really a job.
Okay, so you basically have the big picture of digital marketing since you started. So I guess you got a good vision of how the SEO industry has evolved over the past year. What's your thoughts about the evolution of the industry?
It's a strange one. I think that quite often the way you sort of chart the evolution of something is either by new product launches or algorithm updates and how the dialogue around that goes, because that's still an issue that refuses to go away. And I think actually the industry shifted quite a lot recently. I remember, dial back 4 or 5 years, and the SEO is dead movement kind of had a bit more of a weight to it, and then that dropped off. People realised that no, SEO is still about. Tech SEO became much more the focus again, and we're in the age of the broadcore update, which is for me one of a lack of transparency, a kind of more of an idea of, okay, we really don't know what's going on. Google on the one hand will tell us far more about some of the workings, but actually then tell us far less about others. And I think there's a real shift and an onus on people to be developing kind of skills and knowledge far beyond kind of traditional SEO sort of routes. I would say that I kind of marketed across channels, but Google's sophistication in measuring satisfaction in users, we don't know what that looks like, but we have to assume they're only going to get better at it. So it brings me full circle back to do good stuff, do good content, do good website, and you'll be benefited. I think we're seeing kind of BERT recently, an update like that clearly indicate Google might not be there yet, but at least it's moving in that direction. So I do like to think of myself as actually consulting people into how to make better websites, and then just make sure that Google can kind of crawl them. As utopian and as fluffy as that kind of sounds, it's a good message to get clients bought into. I remember back the old days where it would be, no, we'll just build a load of links and we'll kind of add loads of crappy content and you'll rank, and they'll be like, no, we don't like it, but if it works, it's fine. That's not where the job satisfaction's at. Certainly not for me anyway.
Yeah. That seems to be like the king now, and I know you have a very data-oriented approach when it comes to technical SEO or page SEO. How do you track success for an SEO campaign?
That's a good question. I mean, all campaigns have slightly different kind of. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, all campaigns have slightly different kind of objectives. I mean, broadly speaking, you kind of go back far enough. It's money made because of campaign. It is ROI. It's return on investment, and illustrating ROI from an SEO campaign is always, it can be really challenging. Depends on the client, the website, how you're billing, almost down to that level. But how we like to talk with people is, well, how many conversions are you getting, or what revenue can you chart to this effort, somewhere along the lines. Now, obviously, better attribution is kind of really key. So, and then obviously if you're running kind of multi-channel approaches to marketing, you need attribution. But if you did just say kind of specific SEO ones, so do lots of site migrations, lots of site audits, and again, it kind of does track it back to, okay, well, if we can't track it back to revenue, can we track it back to users? Can we track it back to visibility? But on the really sort of technical migrations and builds, it's got to be, well, just how well has it gone technically? Is the site being crawled better? Is the site being indexed better? There's varying kind of ones. The critical point is, saying data orientated, is just make sure you are kind of tracking before you start. So whatever you've agreed on, whether it is rankings, whether it's traffic, whether it's revenue, whether it's paid as indexed, although that's not the best one. What was it? What do you think you can get it to? And then measure yourself against it afterwards. How have you kind of fared? And that is the most crucial. SEO, the hardest part of SEO is managing people's expectations, and whether things are doable, what can be done in the time frame, and then demonstrating that it has or hasn't worked. Although incidentally, if it ever hasn't worked, be the person to tell the client that, and come armed with a list of what to do next. Don't wait for them to tell you it's not working, because that's a terrible practice, really.
Get your point. Then I think one of the biggest challenge today is to prove the value of your SEO project. So how do you manage to to show basically the value of to C-suites, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, the C-suite discussion is always a tricky one, because whatever I personally find interesting, they probably don't. And that says more about me than it does most C-suites, to be honest. It's because I'm a bit of a nerd. But I mean, you've got to speak in their language, and it's not just the C-suites. Even if you go down a level, it's not just what are your metrics, but what are your boss's metrics, or if you're in the C-suite, what are you expected to deliver, and then fundamentally, how can SEO drive that? So that does come back to, usually it's either something as crude as revenue or traffic, and actually the kind of projecting or modeling what you think it could be against that, because that's the trick of demonstrating the value after the project isn't actually as big a challenge as it is getting the buy-in, actually selling it in initially. So, why should we do this? Why should we invest X, Y, or Z? The easiest time to do that is a migration, before it's happened or after it's gone badly, because it's very easy to say, well, or approximate, well, what traffic of this website might you lose? What value is against that? If it's an e-commerce website, that's really straightforward. Take the conversion rate, take the lost traffic, and then do the maths from there. But bring it back to, certainly for dealing with the C-suite, always bring it back to those top line figures as quickly as you kind of can. And paint it in those terms, be kind of fairly succinct with it. And that's not necessarily to dumb it down, but it's just, most C-suite that I've ever worked with don't have an awful lot of time for me to go off on one. And it's a case of, okay, this is how important it is. Or if nothing else, show them someone else doing it terribly. It's not necessarily to relish in a project gone badly, but there's plenty of high visibility examples of projects going wrong. And I haven't met anyone that would say, no, we're happy with that risk. No one is. It's just a question of, okay, now what are you willing to invest to stop that from happening? And then getting the buy-in from the team underneath. If you're being introduced to a C-suite by the head of marketing or by a channel specialist that loves you, it makes that meeting a lot easier too, because they've already seen your value. Yeah,
you're right. Thanks. Let's move to something that has been very discussed in the SEO industry over the last weeks, I would say, the BERT updates. So what do you think about it? Do you think we should pay attention to this update, or do you think it's something that we just overreacting with?
I mean, when it's the SEO community and we're talking about an update, there's always a degree of overreacting. I think as an industry, we're built on that cycle, no matter how unhelpful it is, purely because it used to be such a huge thing. I mean, it's a significant update. I mean, for kind of two core reasons. Obviously, the first one is for what it means for Google understanding the query, and therefore what it means to the users experiencing a better result or a better outcome from the search. So that's a huge one, and I'm actually quite excited in that, because the better search becomes, the more we can all benefit from it, remove ourselves from the client practitioner standpoint. But actually, you know, it is big, 10% of what English language queries at the moment. And then obviously as that rollout continues, that will likely impact more, and certainly into other regions and languages. And that's not an insignificant number by any stretch. Interestingly, though, in terms of how much has it impacted what we've seen, and actually, you know, there's been this dichotomy of Google saying it is big and then industry saying, well, why can't we really notice it? And I think it is because the type of queries that Google is really impacting here are the ones that are often in the blind spots of most SEO campaigns, in the sense of they are knowledge-based, they are often intricate, they are often long-term, and they're often not very commercial, if you want to kind of call it that. So, it's big. We need to know about it, if nothing else, to kind of reinforce that message of let's just really understand, what is this content, what is this website doing, where in the user's journey are you going to encounter them, and actually what piece of content best serves them. And actually for most brands and websites, you could be encountering that user in multiple places along their journey, and you need a different piece of content, presumably, to cater for each level. So I think that as an overarching message really works. Most sort of traditional marketers are going to be like, well, yeah, duh, that's kind of what you should always have been doing. But I can tell you for a fact that's probably not what the SEO industry really has been doing, certainly not brilliantly for the last sort of 10 or 15 years. But then actually the other angle with an update, and the kind of point of how much should, you know, my clients care, or the stakeholders in the business care, is, well, what do you do differently through it? Most people that are doing it right now are probably already doing what they need to. I think, you know, optimizing for BERT or for anything else like that is not a thing, really. It shouldn't change what you do. It should reinforce the kind of your faith in just focus on providing value. And we just need to trust that Google can rank and judge it better, and return the best results. And I think the better that, you know, for every client or every person that says, why is this website ranking above mine? That content's terrible for that query. That erodes the case that we will make about doing things well. And actually, the better Google gets, the more buy-in we'll get, and ultimately the easier it will be. But yeah, we could do with overreacting a little less too.
So keep calm and relax.
Yeah, keep calm and carry on kind of thing, I think.
Exactly. Where can we see you talking this year? Any conferences on the agenda?
My next kind of major one, and the last one for the year, is actually next week. It's at State of Digital on the 19th of November. Actually being held in conjunction with the UK Search Awards, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like, you know, I think they've tried framing it, the Search Awards, as the after party, which might be a bit of a sell there. But yeah, that's the next one. And I think the kind of my kind of focus on that, and actually what I've spoken a lot about recently, is site migrations, and, you know, the kind of core technical SEO side of things on that. So actually that's what are we talking about, is, you know, do you understand the website you're migrating? Do you know how to do it well? Or flip side, if you get in too late, do you know how to recover if it goes terribly? Which we obviously hope we'll never be in that situation, but yeah, there's always a chance of that. So I hope that I can share some pearls of wisdom from the sort of hundreds of migrations I've been involved in over the years.
Yeah, some cool stuff happening. On a personal side, what do you do on free time?
Okay, my free time actually mostly is based around my kids. You see, I've got two young girls, 6 and 2, who are very lively, to put it politely. They're lovely, they're wonderful, but keeping them busy, you know. And besides that, I'm sort of slowly becoming a little bit interested in whiskey and that side of things. It's hard to phrase that in a way that doesn't make me sound like a borderline alcoholic, but just yeah, those two things are pretty cool. Occasionally play guitar, although I haven't picked it up for a while. Yeah, I think that's kind of the main things. But I have to admit, sometimes I'm still messing around on the internet, even when I'm not being paid to do it. And that's something I've probably been doing for the last 15, 20 years or so, really.
Okay, cool. And the last question is, how does it feel to be, a new OnCrawl ambassador?
It feels great. I used OnCrawl for the first time, oh God, 2 years ago, nearly, probably about that sort of time. And it kind of felt really robust, really strong. There was that whole kind of question of more people need to know about this. I had a great relationship with you guys ever since. And I think that being part of that, I love tools that make my job easier. I mean, I like most tools anyway, because that's the kind of the sort of person I am. But there's a lot of power that can be involved in it. But just the sense of the community that we're building up around it, it's great to be a part of.
Cool. So welcome again.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time, Chris. Talk to you soon, and it was a pleasure to chat with you.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.